Think about the salmon you usually eat and see, ranging from the smallest pink salmon to the considerably giant Atlantic salmon, which size between 150 and 120 centimeters. Impressive? Well, don't know about you, but I'm not impressed yet because the salmon I'm going to talk about today is a little bit exotic. You heard it right, exotic. Think about that and what it might look like. And while you do so, here is just a short tale about my first experience with this sort of technology. I was at the States for vacation. My family and I live in a small B&B with an old couple. Breakfast was provided for us every day, most just pancakes and eggs. But let me tell you, that was the best pancake I ever had in my life. Out of curiosity, I asked about the ingredients. Corn syrup, water, sugar, maple flavor. Oh, and by the way, that corn syrup with the new ones that made of GMO corn. I'm sorry? GMO corn? Wait, what's that? Genetically modified corn. They're what we eat nowadays. Oh, never heard of it. Maybe I should do some research, which I did, and was greatly embarrassed because this thing had been going on for years. It really did shock me of how science nowadays is able to create such interesting and unimaginable things. I started to pay attention to news about the GMO foods, checking its update nearly once a week, just like what I used to do for my favorite TV series. Many of you probably already heard of GMO or genetically modified food already, but today I'm talking about one specific food. You guessed it, genetically modified salmon. Isn't that just normal salmon, but with a fancier name? No, and let the facts speak for itself. These salmons are Atlantic salmon that obtain 3 sets of chromosomes, where most animals have only 2. They also contain a gene from Pacific Chinook salmon, which also manipulates their growth speed. Basically, they grow faster than normal salmon, reaching a market size in less than 18 months. An untreated salmon will take about 3 years to reach that size. Now some of you might think, why don't everybody just invest in GMO salmons since it's so profitable? That's what I'm here for, to talk about the pros, cons, and the ethical questions about genetically modified salmons. Moreover, to answer one big question about these newly developed fish, should we adapt and trust these genetically modified salmons despite of the ethical questions? Before we go deep into it, let's talk about the big reasons of why we produce genetically modified food. As you can tell by the name, science created GMO foods by playing around with the genes. Exchanging DNA, that's what they call it. It's like foods with superpowers. Things like growth efficiency, resisting to parasites, and even behavior can all be manipulated by this technology. We create GMO foods to upgrade our crops and animals in order to provide us with more food supplies. GMO salmon was created containing similar features mainly because of humans' massive needs for seafood. As of 2014, salmon is the second most consumed seafood in the States, and the Atlantic salmon population had been decreasing since the 1990s. It was mainly caused by influences like overfishing, pollution, and all sorts of harmful events. Believe it or not, many salmon populations had completely disappeared. US officially accepted GMO salmon in 2015, and these fish became the first group of genetically modified immigrants to the US. I know these facts all seem irrelevant because who cares? That happened in the States, not Canada. Or not. Yes, the genetically modified salmon was approved by Health Canada for sale in 2016. You know what that means? Some of you might be buying those fish all the time. Wait, but how can you tell if they're not labeled? The company stated that the reason they're not labeled is to avoid unfair attack from the customers. Kinda scary, right? I know some of you might already think of booking a doctor session on weekends to check out your body, but before you do that, let me give you some more information about these fish. I call these fish exotic at first because they sound a bit sketchy, but trust me, they're actually very much like an ordinary salmon. There is not really any significant difference between a GMO salmon and a normal salmon besides of their different genes, which means they also contain a corresponding nutrition like omega-3 and omega-6. That means you get the same benefit eating a GMO salmon or a regular one. Besides that, these fish supplies has increased quite a bit. The good news for us, these GMO fish can reduce the retail price of salmons in supermarket. More food, less hunger. Pretty simple, right? As there are more and more cheap fish out there in the markets, less people would like to suffer from hunger. So, To prepare an apocalypse or something, genetic salmon might become your top choices to store as food. But before you start to admire this new technology, there are still few points you should consider before you know everything has a dark side. Since the GMO fish are still a new thing, or should I say beta version, they still don't have much privilege to do much. But think about the consequences when they're released into the ocean. First, their size and growth speed is going to give them a huge advantage against other ordinary salmons. Plus, these fish are like the stormtroopers in Star Wars. Their shocking reproduction speed will turn them into an overpowered army swarming into the ocean, which will harm the ecosystem. Besides, they can cause health problems. Yes, I did mention the benefits of nutrition in GMO salmon, but here comes the scary part. These fish contain a higher level of growth hormones called IGF-1, which has been found to have a connection with breast and heart cancer. Lastly, economically speaking, as there's only one single company producing GMO salmon, the company is able to play around with the price a bit. Therefore, many people argue GMO salmon as a food scam. Well, I guess nobody can give enough evidence to prove you wrong yet. Coming back to the question, or should we adapt and trust this technology? It is unfortunate but necessary to say that genetic modified foods will likely become our main food source in the future. There's nobody to blame except for ourselves, as the decreasing population of animals is mainly affected by human influences. These new type of salmon will also likely to become the new food trend in a few years. There will and will always be concerns about those GMO salmon. These fish are proved to be safe by many associations like Health Canada. The company is also trying its best to make these products as trustworthy as possible. Plus, all the GMO salmons have passed the Canadian food requirement. On the other hand, although those GMO fish are still getting tweaked and developed by the scientists, it is, however, important for people like us to accept the reality. This is our future. This is happening because of us. As humans have done such horrific things to the environment that even the most common species on our planet is going to an end. But trust me, there still is hope. Our science advancement today is going to help out, but there's one more thing we need. That is every single one of your awareness to the environment. And next time you dump garbages in flowing waters, the next time you throw away your food trays half full, the next time you disregard our environment for your own benefit, let the GMO salmon remind you of what we have already done to this planet.